All right, I'm recording.
Hey, man, it's good to see you. Good to have another day of OTXNT. So, got a full lineup today of stuff. It's pertinent. It's been interesting. It is interesting. Like, we start talking about certain things, not necessarily because we want to jump into the news, but like just stuff that you preach about and you teach about regularly just becomes, well, it's current news now. So, you and I last week started an episode that we weren't sure if we were going to continue and do the next part this time, but here we are talking about demonic influence in the world, and what happened over the weekend that has generated so much conversation for today.
Yeah, so I think we're going to talk a little bit about one of my childhood favorite stores, Target, and then, of course, baseball, what's going on with the Dodgers. And, of course, what do we get to look forward to in the month of June as we move into this very aggressive promotion of LGBTQIA plus. And how does that relate with a Christian worldview, and what's the trajectory that we're on? I think that's a really important part of this. So you want to just pray and jump right in?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's pray. Join me with, if you will, in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Well, as we share this now, to be fair, where we're at in the storyline, over the weekend, it really kind of blew up, right? Was that Target had already rolled out all their Pride stuff. Which I saw at my Target. It was right there, right when you walk in on the front. Some of the big things that were making headway was what was it that they said? There was the, so if you've got kids, if you're listening, you probably don't want to hear some of this stuff. And you probably know with the title, we're going to talk about this stuff. But like some of the tuck-friendly stuff, tucking away certain things to fit the lady's swimsuit. And then also the connection that they have, some of the designs and some of the shirts with this that they've entered into a contract with this group that for a few, I think it was like 3 that they're selling from this group that's a big LGBT one that has satanic and occult connections. But what's happened, there's been a lot of pushback already. And so what you're finding is either they're moving their displays all to the very back of the store, and apparently they're pulling out certain items. No one really knows what items they're pulling yet. I think some of them, they said, is maybe some of the kids' stuff that they had, because you had baby onesies with all sorts of stuff on them. And, but yeah, I mean, so that's where we're at. There was all this stuff that was out there, and then people became aware of what all this was. And so there's been a lot of pushback. The reason we want to bring this video up, though, was not just to say, hey, look what Target has. Because, to me, Andrew, was it news to you that Target had a Pride collection?
No. I mean,
no. That's every year, right?
Yeah. Well, and the truth is, though, last year, I thought in particular was a huge ramp up on the month of June, and just something that kind of did catch me off guard to the degree, right? And so I've been kind of dreading this year. I mean, there were news stories last year about dietary choices for sodomy, just horrible things that I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? But I remember, years ago when Target was one of the leading places of saying, hey, anybody use any bathroom you want. Yeah. And so we've known where Target has leaned a long time. It's just, remember when gay marriage was illegal, less than a decade ago?
Yeah.
Wow, this has escalated very quickly, and escalated not just in the direction of, hey, we're proud supporters of this these lifestyles, but if you're not, you're the problem. And then not only are we in favor of this, we sure love the devil and Satan because he's in favor of it too. I mean, that's where we are today.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, wow, this This is surprising, and it's amazing because the corporations just continue to push this, even though it seems to be very much hurting the bottom line.
Yeah.
So what's at work here? What's driving it? If it's not profits for for-profit institutions, what are they hoping for, right?
Yeah. Well, to me, this is the one that it just, to me, the news from this past week immediately connected to what we talked about last week, which is, I want to remind people of some of the stuff that we talked about. So as I've been preaching through the book of James, you'll see, right? He says in James 3:13, he says, "Who among you is wise and understanding? By his good conduct, he should show that his works are done in gentleness that comes from wisdom." Verse 14. "But if you have bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, don't boast and deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from above, but it's earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where there is envy and selfish ambition, there is disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peace-loving, gentle, compliant, full of mercy, good fruits, unwavering, without pretense. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who cultivate peace." And here's the issue, man. You read that, and I think the thing that really stuck out at me over the past few weeks as I've been processing this passage is just how much of this wisdom of the world that we see, we just take it for it's just natural. It's the way the world works, and how much of that, though, it seems like what James is saying, though, is at the core of it, though, is this demonic element. And that in the very least, what can be said is that it's used to create roadblocks and problems for the church. It's demonic. It's lies. It's things to create chaos and trouble for the church. And so, whether you can make the jump that these things are demonic in themselves, at the core of it, it's used by the demonic, it's used by Satan to do these things. But what I find super interesting, though, is how once that story broke recently about the clothing, right? Like, so this is the article, and actually I just went to their webpage to see, and the store is temporarily closed. Why? Probably because they don't want people to see all this stuff. They said maybe this says we've got too many orders. That's what it made it look like. We've got all these orders we got to fill. But the group that they partnered with, it says that some of their stuff that they have put in there, not only is it heavy into the trans movement and the LGBT stuff, but it's also got stuff that says, like, Satan loves you and respects you, who you are. You're important, valuable in the world. You deserve to treat yourself with love and respect. It's got Satan respects pronouns. He loves all LGBTQ people, right? Like, so this is it, right? And so you've got, and then you've got some of the stuff too, like I think you were saying, you've got like the pins, the Satan respects pronouns, and you've got the Baphomet, design, and this is the kind of stuff that's going on with them. And so I just think it's ironic, right, that we're saying that there is stuff that's the wisdom of the world that's used to create lies, to put roadblock and to get the church off track, to this stuff is just blatant. It has at its core, this is the natural next piece, right? Like, this comes, like, this guy straight up just it goes hand in hand, right? To be this and to go down this road, eventually you get to a place where you just say, no, I'm cool with Satan. That's where I'm at. So to me, I feel like this is why this ties into, it's like, look no further than the blatant demonic element that is tied behind at least this guy's stuff. And whether those people know or worship Satan on the other side, they're at least being used by him. This guy's just being honest about it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it's been less than 60 days since we did the video on the school shooting in Tennessee by a transgendered lady, and she, targeted a Christian school and targeted Christian employees and children and executed them before being killed. And among the things that Target's pushing is keychains and things that say "We bash back," and so you have kind of some violent subtones to some of these things. It's not all just "Yay for our side." It's a little aggressive. And again, the public outcry and mourning of that terrible murder of Christian kids in a Christian school by a transgendered person lasted 5 minutes, and then it was kind of like, hey, but we got to make sure that they don't feel bad. And it just kind of shows you the course of this. But yeah, tying things to Satan. I'm not so sure that this group really worships Satan or believes in Satan, but they want to invoke Satan because there is an enmity embedded in this movement against Christianity. And it must be, churches are trying to find a way to make peace, not, I don't think really truly Bible believing churches are doing this, but trying to, change doctrine to accommodate LGBTQ. But the issue is that the Bible exists. As long as the Bible exists, the opposition to the living that God defines as holy and right can't make peace with Christianity. And so what better way to just lay the cards on the table than to say, well, we're siding with the arch enemy of God and Christ, Lucifer and Satan. And so it's kind of baked in, and you're seeing it, more and more aggressive, right? Transphobe collector, a skull on the flag, homophobe headrest with skulls beside with pastel guillotines. Again, this is some of the things that are being sold through the website that's being partnered with Target to offer these things. So when I was a kid, we lived next to Target, and my mom would load us up in a cart. We'd go around Target, have a good time. We'd bring the cart home because we literally lived across the street. And that was like a fun thing I remember when I was 4 years old. So I've always just kind of liked Target, fond memories. But the institution is clearly not in line with traditional values. It's supporting anti-Christian brands and anti-Christian clothing. And when is Target going to have a Christian month? I wonder. When are the Christian flags going to be on display? And when is the pro-Christ shirt partnerships going to come on? How come that's not on the agenda, right? These are things that I think we just have to recognize that. But half this country still identifies as Christian, and so why would a industry do this to themselves and put themselves up for massive boycotts and backlash? And I think the reason is the smart people in marketing are saying we've got to get those younger brands, and since Gen Y is identifying at a high rate with LGBTQ, we've got to risk losing our core base for the future base. And so they're trying desperately to get on the right side in their minds of the LGBTQ in order to gain those younger generations, those that are under 20 right now or in their 20s. And the reality is I think it's a losing bet, but they do have the trajectory in their favor. If Christians don't do something, we will continue to be kind of ostracized until, in fact, we will be the enemy. But it is interesting. I think you're right. There just seems to be, when you pridefully declare rebellion against what God has defined as right and as within nature, you're following in the footsteps of the first one. And so I've been preaching through 1 John. Just kind of working really slowly, but I just finished verse 8 of chapter 3. It says, "He who sins is of the devil, for the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil." And so we are at enmity, right? Now our enmity is not a violent destruction. Christ has defeated sin in the cross, and he's coming again to judge the devil and those that are with him. Again, I've said it before, the person who went in and killed Christian kids and Christian teachers is in hell. That is a real place, and that place was built according to Christ for Satan and his demons, and those that serve Satan and his demons will go there. This is a Christian doctrine, and so unless you're willing to give up the doctrine and jump on board, we're going to see more and more of this very anti-Christian, very pro-Satan agenda, because John tells us they belong to the devil.
Yeah,
and so did we, right? So did you and I. Before we gave our lives to Christ, we were of him and we were of his nature. We were happy to participate. And so, yeah, I'll give it back. But
it's just ironic, the anger that they channel towards, right? And that's it. It's Like I think it's irony, like that's what it's shooting towards, and it's aimed towards God. Let's talk about the Dodgers for a second too,
Yeah, that's what I
recent,
wanted to,
like,
yeah.
because that
Go ahead.
has to get to the next part, because you look at the same thing there of who they brought in. And once again, their frustrations are not just with people who don't accept them. Their frustrations, they're taking it out, and they're revealing themselves to be coming against Jesus, coming against the cross. And I mean, you think about this, like that is what they're going to do, is become blasphemous in that, to prove their point. And so their rebellion is clearly seen, and it clearly is seen of what it's all going to be directed towards. It's not just simply, this is who we are and we're going to, we want to exist. No, we're going to take it, and we're going to take it all the way in our rebellion to say we don't care, and we're going to also blaspheme Jesus, right? So you want to bring us up to speed on the Dodger story, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, essentially, we've got a pro LGBTQ night on June 16th that's going to be at the Dodger Stadium against the Giants, and the Dodgers had invited a group called the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to the event, and then there was backlash, and the Dodgers disinvited, and then there was another backlash, and then they reinvited. But the issue here is, like, this is not just a group of people who identify as one of those initials, but this group identifies themselves antagonistically against nuns. So sisters. This is men. This group came out of the 60s and 70s, out of the Castro district. And it was a group designed to make fun of, to mock nuns. So sisters, usually you've got a convent of nuns. They call themselves of sisters. And one of the titles for Mary in Catholicism is perpetual help. And so the prayers to Mary, if you're Catholic, she's viewed as one, even though from heaven is available perpetually to offer help. So they took the idea of sisters of perpetual, and then indulgences. Of course, as Protestants, we don't believe in indulgences and purgatory, but indulgences are viewed as a way of the merits of Christ and the merits of the saints being divvied out then to those in need by the priestly structure of the church. So it's a sacred thing for Catholics, and they chose to make a mockery even in their title. So they're called SPI because they've been around for about 50 years now. But what they do is they do things like have Easter pageants mocking the crucifixion of Jesus. They talk about abortions of Christ on Christmas Eve. They do things that their whole reason for being is mocking Catholics and mocking nuns in particular. People have taken a pretty high calling, vows to celibacy, to prayer and petition for the world, for their lives. That's a high calling. I think that's interesting. We should do something for Baptists at some time. What do we do with single people in Baptist life? It would be a really good episode. But you don't have to be Catholic to say, hey, this is kind of not right? Like, why would we promote a group whose existence is designed as an anti-Christian, anti-Catholic organization, and their events are designed to be antagonistic and mocking Catholics, and by extension Christians? And so the fact that they were disinvited, this big uproar took place because how dare you, now you're anti-LGBTQ. And so now they've been reinvited. And of course, that's the right thing, because of the anti-LGBTQ bigots were the ones pushing them out. Wait a second. It's not just any group. It's the reality that this group is hateful, right? That they're hateful, and their direction is towards Christianity. But once again, you look at that, and you look at the way they're dressed up, some of their activities they practice. It is mocking the work of Christ.
No, it's disgusting.
It's tied once again to Satanism.
It's the blasphemy that you can see on some of the videos. It's absolutely it just maddens. It makes you mad, some of the stuff, and you're just like, there's hate, and it's directed towards Jesus as a result. And it's not that they're just inviting them to come sit and have a group ticket, right? Like, this is to be on the field. This is in the 10th inning. What does it say here? They what do they do? They said something about because where is it? Because I'm reading the USA Today version of this, and that is, boy, that's crazy too. Of the way that they do this, it's there. It says they're going to place them on, take their place on the field at their 10th annual 10th inning. There's only 9, unless they went to overtime. I don't know how they would have known it in overtime, into extra innings. This is where it was that they've asked them to take their place on the field at our 10th annual LGBT Pride Night, right? So like, this is not, we're bringing them onto the field. We're showcasing them. Are you kidding me? Like, you couldn't have picked any other group.
What? You couldn't have picked some LGBTQ group that's known for humanitarian work, right? And saying, hey, this is a public good that this group is about. You know, those do exist. No, you have to pick a group that is known to be mocking Jesus, who gave his life to forgive sin. You know, like, this is some of the worst type of people on the planet, and it's not because of their orientation. It's because of the way they choose to live is an outspoken rebellion against God and His law and His nature. But yeah, to bring them, so who in their right minds thought this was a good PR move? It's because they're so outlandish, and because there's such a push for this, that they think that they'll get more marketing dollars by having a nasty group representing LGBTQIA, rather than a group of somebody, you know, who maybe identifies in a social way, but has actually done some good for the world. You know, the good they're doing is trying to make a place for people in abject rebellion against God. I think, go ahead.
I just feel like, okay, here's something we need to say, right? Because I know you and I have to wrap this one up today. Couple things at this, you say, like, why is it all seeming to go this way, right? Why? Couple things I think there's important to just kind of look at. First off, I think of this, like, if we're going to talk more about the demonic, right? Remember in Jesus's temptation in Matthew 4, sorry. Beginning in verse 8, it says, again, the devil took him to a very high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, I will give you all of these things if you fall down and worship me. And then Jesus told him, go away, Satan, for it's written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. And the devil left him, and the angels began to serve him. The first thing I think is important, right, is that, like, you look at that and you say that it's a real temptation, right? Where he's able to say, I will give you all of these kingdoms. That was something that like, you stop and just think it for a moment. Like, Jesus is there, and Satan is saying, I will give it all to you because I own it all. I'll give it all to you if you just bow down. And recognize that, like, what is that implying? It's implying that who has the sway and really the ownership of the world around us. I think it's pretty clear what that passage is implying, right? It's something that we need to just keep in mind, that when we deal with the world, we need to recognize and be reminded of who is actually in control. The other thing is, you look and you see that, like, Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse, look at, what does he say? Beginning in verse 2, he says, instead we have renounced the secret and shameful things, not acting deceitfully or distorting the word of God, but commending ourselves before God to everyone's conscience by an open display of the truth. But if our gospel is veiled, it's veiled to those who are perishing. In their case, the God of this age has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel and the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And I mean, you think about that, like, once again, what's he saying, right? Is it's the God of this age is what he calls Satan. And so I think you just be mindful of like, this stuff it's appearing now, and it's becoming more blatant, because I think as the church is I think, to me, I almost wonder if, I think you and I have gone back and forth in terms of, like, okay, what's going on around us? Is this that there is a bigger movement of things becoming anti-Christian now? Has the church lost its influence, or are we just seeing a full court press by the devil now? Like what is happening? You know, and in this case, though, you know, you look and you say, you know, I'm not quite sure, but at the end of the day, it seems like there's so much more stuff that's starting to recognize, like there's more going on here than just it's just humans. Like there's something darker that's out there, and now we're starting to see a tip of the hat to who's really behind a lot of
Yeah.
this stuff,
Yeah.
right? And that to me is, I think, very telling, right? When you go there, you recognize you don't just get there because you want to. I think there's a definite pull to bring you to that place. And who does he bring? He doesn't. He either brings it to this veiled, like, oh, I'm cool, Satan's cool, or you bring it to this swipe at Jesus, right? And man, yeah, that's some of the stuff I just feel like it's starting to really just reveal what's
Yeah.
going on behind the scenes.
Well, I think this is a good warning to the Christians who are trying to make peace and making peace by yielding biblical standards of holiness. You're never going to be giving up enough, right? This group is not going to be happy until you are an advocate, an outright supporter, and out cheerleading the causes of whatever the latest letter is in this alphabet. And so, you know, if you're waiting for that hill to die on, we're there, right? And we need churches to be faithful to Christ and what He's called us to, and not to try to make peace with culture. The other thing I think that's really important is that we need to talk about boycotts, right? I'm not wealthy, you know. These videos, I know we're bringing in millions of dollars on these videos. At least maybe you. I don't know. I'm not making a lot of money on these videos.
I will not reveal, nor will I share any profits I've received.
But anyway, you know, if you've got limited resources, why spend them at places that hate your faith? Why spend them at places that are promoting groups that hate your faith? I know Target might be more affordable than some other places in your area, but you know, Walmart's not doing this to this level. Maybe that's where you need to go, or just find some local places and spend a little more, but don't support people that absolutely hate your faith. You know, I don't think that that's a crazy boycott. And I know for some reason conservatives are like afraid of boycotts. Like, we don't want to do that. The reality is that you just be wise with your money and recognize that where you spend your money, you'll have to talk to God about one day, give an account of what you've done. So I think it's right to consider, especially in June when we start seeing everybody bow knee to this agenda, maybe pay attention to who's not bowing knee to this agenda. The other thing I got from Doug Wilson, he was talking about the pride flag. Isn't it interesting that the pride flag is a rainbow, and that rainbow is really a sign of God saying, I'm not going to judge you in this way. And because He's given a reprieve on a judgment by flood, that is the sign of pride of this movement. But He is going to judge, right? You know, so they're holding God's declaration of, I won't do this again to you in this way, as almost a tease to God, you know, and the Bible does say God's not going to be mocked. But Doug Wilson suggested maybe in June it would be wise for Christians to put out Christian flags and just kind of define for the world who owns the house that you live in. And just like in July, I usually get my American flag out. I'm intending to get my Christian flag out. I'm going to buy some Christian flags and have a few extra. And maybe that would just be a nice non-aggressive way of just saying, you know, who we honor June, we honor Jesus Christ. And what an amazing thing if the Christians in this country all put those out. It might really shock the world to find out how many people really are still faithful to Jesus Christ. And it's just a very simple sign. So I think actually that's what I'm going to preach on this Sunday. I'm going to preach on the history of the Christian flag and talk a little bit about the color choices and what it means. We'll go to the Bible. But if you're like, what do we do? What do we do? Well, be careful how you spend your money. And then maybe there are some little things that we can do to say, okay, you know, you're claiming territory, you're claiming ownership of these institutions. Well, we're just going to say where our allegiance lies. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you do that, and you got to think that stuff through. You know, I've done videos in the past about like shopping certain places and stuff like that, and we did about like, you know, especially what to do about Disney with some of that stuff too. But I mean, this is kind of a different level, I think, with the kind of the blatant satanic connections to some of this stuff. I think regardless, my big takeaway in all of this is keeping in mind, like Ephesians 6:12, our struggle is not with flesh and blood. Like we don't need to be angry necessarily at people. You know, we can be angry about what they have done, or what the blasphemy or things like that. But once again, it's not. Our fight is not against that. I think when you see the stories, and they say Target says that they had to move stuff because people were angry and fighting. If you're a Christian doing this stuff, that's stupid. Like, you don't need to be violent or anything, because you're reminded that this is all connected somehow. He says not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this darkness, against evil spiritual forces in the heavens. For this reason, take up the full armor of God, so you'll be able to resist in the evil day, having prepared everything to take your stand. Right? Therefore, stand with truth like a belt around your waist, righteousness like armor around your chest, and so on. Right? And I do think that it should be a reminder that when you start to see the blasphemous stuff, when you start to see the satanic things more and more connected to the kind of rebellion against traditional Christian values, it should just be a reminder that there is somebody else running the show in this. And as a Christian, we are expanding the territory of the kingdom through the Great Commission, and we need to be mindful that we're not just strolling down an unclaimed territory. It's claimed, and we are taking it over for Jesus. Right? That when we go into a place, when your church exists in an area, it's sort of bring light into the darkness. When you go and become, and you plant it in your neighborhood, you're there as a light into the darkness. And so that should be mindful of the world around us, that who you are, you're a light in a dark world. And it seems like now we're starting to see just a little bit more of pulling back of the curtain of who's behind some of the world. More than it used to be. So that's my case, is pray up, man. Pray up and be mindful of the spiritual realm. You don't need to take, and that's some other stuff I've looked at and listened to lately on people taking LSD to see the spiritual realm. You don't need to take LSD to see the spiritual realm. It's just read the news. You'll start to see it's starting to be there blatantly right in front of you.
And just going back to Disney, they earlier this year, they did release a cartoon on FXX called The Little Demon, where the main character is the Antichrist. So Disney owns FXX, and they're releasing cartoons for kids and comedy about just
Good
that little
night.
demon, and again, so it's everywhere. Owl House as well, witchcraft and that kind of stuff going on the Disney Channel. So again, be careful what your kids are watching as well. But speaking of prayer, I think we're out of time. You want to close?
Let's do it, man. Well, this is what we need is Lord's blessing and protection. Let's close out and comment, subscribe. If you're not subscribed, if you're not commenting, if you're not liking that, we want to hear that. Let us know, and just do that for us. It helps with the videos and all of that too. So let's pray though. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look with favor on you and give you peace. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. And hey, we hope to talk with and do this again next week. We'll talk to you then though. Bye-bye.
God bless. Take care.